Okay, and this is Corinne Piper take 3. We've had some guests come in our video, so now we're going to do it again. And this is my audience. That's my lovely daughter. Here's the wonderful staff of my apartment complex, and we have some guests over here too. So, and this time I'm going to put myself in the video too, which is a bonus. Okay, so. Can you sit up, please? Thank you. Today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that is really boring, and it's education policy. Education policy is not something the normal person worries a whole bunch about, but we have something on the table right now that's called Common Core standards, and it's going to affect every person, whether you have a child in school or not. So my presentation is on the perils of Common Core standard, because money, in reality, is probably the least of the problem, because it is going to cost our country quite a bit in other ways. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why did people put in Common Core to begin with? Why are people dabbling with education? Well, first of all, the United States have been slumming bottom for a really long time in academic standards. When you're looking at international comparison, the United States is on the bottom. So the people that are working to improve education, that's usually with very good intent. Sadly, it also means that every politician, every bureaucrat, when it comes to getting their budget approved or getting reelected, this is a pet topic. They also like to come up with these wacky solutions sometimes, again, probably with good intent, but for reasons that are not always supported by evidence. So let's look at Common Core standards and see what are Common Core standards and what are the concerns. So first of all, Common Core standards is a set of national uniform standards. It is designed so that every child in our country will learn the same thing at the same time, no matter where they live. Supporters say that these standards are to provide a consistent and clear understanding of what students are expected to learn so that teachers and parents know what they need and how to help them. Now I'm going to post all of these links with my film on YouTube as well as on my student portal so that the evidence and all my quotes are supported there, and this is actually from the Common Core website. So why is that a bad idea? It kind of sounds commonsensical, does it not? Well, the very folks that participated in the creation of Common Core standards, let's look at who they are. Do they have any business creating education standards for our kids? Well, Common Core standards were created by the National Governors Association and the Council of the Chief State School Board Officers and an alliance of corporations with bipartisan support. So let's just put that little dash in there. So it was created by politicians that were elected into office. I don't know about you guys, but when you elected governor, did you think about, oh, this guy has the most extensive education experience? Probably not. Most of them have never been a day in the classroom and have no idea what a child needs to learn to be at grade level. The same can be said for state school board members. And here in the state of Colorado, they are elected. Most of them do not have a classroom experience. Yet, all these individuals were part of creating Common Core state standards. And then we have the dash of corporations. They probably weren't experts. And even if you work for a textbook company, doesn't that give you a little bit of a bias and perhaps a conflict of interest? If you have to replace every textbook in the state of Colorado with your merchandise, was there maybe a little bit of money motivation behind it? So they're not experts, and there's a conflict of interest. So let's look at the money. If you had a program, like we said, that is of that magnitude, that will make sure that every textbook in the state is stale and out of date, that will replace every single data collection system in our state, and that will have to retrain every teacher and throw out every test. How much money would we we looking to be spending at that? And would you think that maybe we should look at that consideration before approving such a program for the very taxpayers that have to carry the burden? That never happened. Instead, Colorado was no different than many other states. And in the state of Colorado, we voted in Common Core state standards through our school board. There was no fiscal note. This is what happens in state legislature. If a bill is presented in the House or in the Senate, it comes with an evaluation, a fiscal evaluation as to what the cost is going to be and also what the benefit is. None of those things happen. So instead, they voted in this wacky policy that was created by special interests and elected politicians, and we have no idea how much it's going to cost. So it is just another unfunded mandate. Now, that's not the most disturbing part. I told you in the beginning of this presentation that money is probably the least of our problems. How about data harvesting and tracking of children? Do we trust our government to collect personal information on private citizens and children without parental notification or consent? That is exactly what is happening with Common Core state standards. During the whole Benghazi dust up, FERPA, which is the Family Education Right to Privacy Act, was changed by executive orders. Right now, the government has the right to collect information on my child or any of our children ages P20. Now, P is not for preschool, it's prenatal. They have the right to collect data and share it with any other government or private institution of their choice. So that is number one. And what are they collecting? Well, we have had surveys at our children's school from everything about, do you own guns in your home? What political affiliation are your parents? Do your parents drink? How do you feel? Do you feel safe at home? And the teachers are supposed to be reporting on the parents as well. And this is without the parental consent. So what happens when you have that teacher that you just don't jive with? Or that one parent, the teacher has that one parent that they don't like. What information are they putting in this child's permanent file to develop a biometric fingerprint for each individual, prenatal through college age? Now, this just happened this week, so I actually just added this into my presentation today. Congress, the House just passed House Bill 1281. It allows DNA genetic data to be harvested on unborn children in Obamacare. And it is to be connected with Common Core standards. So Common Core is just one arm in this huge federal octopus. So let's look at the standards themselves. We said that the standards are supposed to make more consistent, clear standards so that we know that what our children are learning, and this is supposed to raise academic achievement in our country. So Finland is often thrown out there as comparison. Finland is a country that has national standards. Finland does great in international comparison. So Finland is often hailed as the giant of academic performance. So what does Finland have that Common Core is going for or doesn't have? Let's compare the two. So in Finnish lessons, what can the world learn from the educational change in Finland? By author Pasi Sahlberg. He described there are several practices that make Finnish education superior. One of them is the lack of standardized testing. Now you're making me laugh. The lack of standardized testing? So CSAP and TCAP, we had about 4 days of standardized testing. The teachers went through months and months of brain hemorrhage to try to get to this. There was a lot of pressure on students and teachers alike. You don't have so many students pass, your school might shut down. This is what was happening. And students were feeling the pressure. If they did not perform well, they might not get into the next school that they wanted. This doesn't happen in Finland. I can tell you, I grew up in Sweden. Okay? We don't have standardized testing in Sweden. It is a practice, there's no correlation between standardized testing and actual learning. There's no evidence that supports that if you have a really good standardized test, that the students learn more. So in Common Core, we're going to go from 4 days to 20 days of testing. That is 20 days, a whole month of children not learning. much stress, how much prep time do we need for that? And I'm not just talking one test. There are multiple test stations throughout the year. And teachers will be evaluated accordingly. 50% of a teacher's evaluation will be if the child filled in the correct bubble in a multiple choice test. That's effective teaching. Now, I brought in a couple of quotes from some of the experts that I worked with. And James Milgram was the only professional mathematician on the Common Core Standards Committee for validation of the math standards. He was the only one. The rest of them were special interest. And he did not sign off on the standards. Why? He warns that by grade 7, if we adopt Common Core state standards and we look internationally, the average American student will be 2 years behind its international peers. Are these rigorous standards? Now, if we ask Dr. Soderstotsky, PhD, who was the only professional that was on the language standards, who also refused to sign off on the standards, she says that instead of increased college readiness, the result will be the opposite. This is what she said. A diminished emphasis on literature in the secondary grades makes it unlikely that American students will study a meaningful range of culturally and historically significant literary works before graduation. And she quotes research that were published in 2011 by the National Council for Teachers of English. And she also says, it also prevents students from acquiring a rich understanding and use of the English language. So, are the standards rigorous? Will they make students prepared? Will it increase academics? I question that. Now, there's also no evidence that standards at all increase learning. Because if that's the case, look historically at academic policy in the United States. We have had decades of No Child Left Behind under George W. Bush. George W. Bush said that no child will be left behind, and by 2014, every child in America will be at grade level. It's 2014. If every child was at grade level, why do we still have a problem? Then why are we looking to reinvent the standards? Just because we're smacking a different label on it, calling it Common Core, and putting in more intrusive data collection, and participating more so and deeper in practices that we know don't work, is not going to improve education. So in conclusion, instead of raising academic achievement with Common Core standards, we are not solving a problem. We are creating a bigger one. And our children are on board. We are going to have weak academics. There's an unknown cost to this program that we don't know if the taxpayers, frankly, of this country can afford. It is not sustainable. And meanwhile, we are engaging in dangerous practices such as collecting children's private information. And this is coming from the same governmental system that cannot find IRS emails, that's spying on us through the NSA, that has scandal after scandal. It can't even launch a website. So again, my take is that Finland might be succeeding. 64,000 kids nationally. Their success is so small in the failure that we are going to have for 81.5 million children in the United States. Thank you. And now I'm going to show my audience and wrap up.
Wow. Very interesting, Kuna.
Okay. Thanks, guys.